Hello, Marvel Gaming fans. Today we're going to take a look at how the awesome new Spider-Man 2 game, which of course dropped just last month, fits into the overall Spider-Man gaming universe timeline. It's really cool to see how it all fits together. Also, I will be making a few small tweaks to the timeline I presented in my previous video, thanks to all of the incredible comments people left on the video. I really appreciate it when people do that. I read them all, respond to all of them, and take them into account. Also, right up front, I got to give huge props to Corbino the Extino. Dude, you rock. I simply wouldn't even attempted this video if not for the fantastic research that you provided to put it all together. Thank you so much. Now, there will obviously be spoilers for the game, so make sure you played it first, but assuming you have, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Now, don't forget, we do have the November contest running all month. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment. One random winner will be announced on the video in early December and can choose from one of the books or steel books above. Best of luck. Also, don't forget we have the new membership option in case you want to help me in my goal of doing this full time. So you can see the perks you get if you want to join, but I always like to say, no matter how you support the channel, whether it's simply subscribing, leaving comments, liking videos, everything is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Okay, so here's the timeline that we left off with in the last video. Again, check that one out if you want to get all the history of how we got to this point. We're just going to discuss a few tweaks to this and then, of course, dive into the Spider-Man 2 game. So first, let's talk about the first Spider-Man game, which is placed in October 2018 for the main part of the game, and then it does bleed over a little bit into 2019. So people pointed out, hey, there's some good evidence that shows that this is the exact right placement. So first of all, in the game, we get a gravestone, 2018. So that's awesome. That places it in 2018. Also in the game, they're holding a Halloween party. It's during the back-to-school mission, and we're going to see that probably this is a party being held prior to Halloween, which it happens. So that no problem there. But I want to point out this is why we know it's both October and 2018. So what I mean by a little bit early is I provided a day-by-day breakdown of each of the missions, and notice back to school, it seems at least from looking at all the different evidence, is happening on October 12th. And you can watch the earlier video if you want to see, why I placed it on these days. But again, it's okay. You can have a Halloween party early. That's no problem. Okay, so there you go. I do think that the first Spider-Man game is absolutely in October of 2018. Now, let's talk about the Iron Man VR game. I had a ton of people say, dude, you got to add this to the timeline. And guess what? People were right. So there's not a lot to link it, but there are some key facts. In the game, there's both a mention of the Devil's Breath incident, so that's important because that was in the first Spider-Man game. Also, the Iron Man VR game mentions Norman Osborn's mayoral campaign, and we know by the end of the Spider-Man game that he's no longer mayor. That's out. So we can pretty well place this then, right? It seems like it's got to happen while Osborn was still running for mayor, so I'm going to go with November of 2018. Let me know in the comments if you have other thoughts on that. I haven't been able to find too many websites, if any, that attempt to place this somewhere. So we're going to go with November of 2018, but I'm more than open to moving that if people have other thoughts. Okay, how about the time frame difference between the Spider-Man game and the Miles Morales game? So we get lots of hints on this. I really do think that this is the correct placement, but we will also see there is some contradictory info out there. So first of all, let's look at the bios. In the first game, Peter is 23, so in October 2018, he's 23, and Miles is 15. In the second game, in the bios, Peter is now 24 in December 2019, and Miles is 17 in December 2019. So that would mean that Miles has aged, gone up 2 years in age. 2 years hasn't gone by, but he's moved from 15 to 17, versus Peter's only gone from 23 to 24. So I don't think there's any other way to make this work other than the Miles Morales game is December of 2019. Because we know it's December, by the way, because there's all kinds of Christmas stuff. So it's absolutely December. That's a given. The question is it 2019 or 2020? Well, Peter's only aged a year. There's just no way it could be 2020, December of 2020. It's got to be December of 2019. Now, Miles has aged, obviously, from 15 to 17, but if his birthday was in the November timeframe, that works perfect. My guess is that Peter's is sometime after January, obviously, so we'll call it February just to throw a date out there. But anyway, it makes sense that Peter's aged from 23 to 24, while Miles has gone from 15 to 17. However, we do have some contradictory information, because if we just look now at Miles Morales' game, we see a gravestone of 2020. Oof. There's just no way that that can work and that the bios are also correct. One of the two has to be wrong. The bios are either wrong or this date is wrong. So the fandom has gone two different ways. The wiki does say that this date is wrong. It goes with 2019, but I've seen a lot of people say, no, no, no. The bios, I guess, are wrong because it's 2020. I personally think the bios are going to be more correct than a gravestone that just flashed up briefly. So I'm going to go with the bios, especially because we're going to see the Spider-Man 2 game is even more consistent with these bios. We'll get to that in a second, but trust me, I think the bios are going to be accurate. So I'm going to go with this gravestone should have said 2019. However, one small tweak to the missions, notice it says December 31st. Well, it's right after, the day after the Battle for Harlem. In the day-by-day breakdown that I gave, that wouldn't work because I have the Battle for Harlem on December 28th. So I think there could easily be a gap between Time to Rally, which we know is on December 25th. All of those missions are on December 25th, and between Someone Left the Lights On. So I'm going to jump forward a little bit there so that we get the Battle for Harlem being the day before the gravestone. So I like the 1231 part of it. I just don't like the 2020. Oof. So I just don't think there's any other way to make this work unless Miles Morales' game is in December of 2019. Let me know what you think in the comments, but I guess I just trust the bios over the gravestone. Okay, now finally, let's get to Spider-Man 2. We've made all the updates that are necessary. Let's dive into this thing's timeline. So I had mentioned this earlier, but notice we've got Peter's age and Miles' age. But first, that Spider-Man 2 is set 10 months after the events of Spider-Man Miles Morales. That's been firmly established by the game. So you got that. But we also have Peter at 25 and Miles at 17. So Miles has not aged, and Peter is now 25. So keep those two things in mind. Also, we get in the game October. You know, they have a giant calendar. I love how they really, really try to tell us the months when this stuff is happening. So we get October. So if we take those two things in mind, if we play Spider-Man 2 10 months after Miles Morales, and in October, which it might bleed into November, we just don't know yet. But anyway, in October, then we get October 2020. That works perfectly with Peter now being 25, if his birthday again is maybe February or later, and with Miles having a November birthday. He hasn't hit his birthday yet, so Miles is 17. That's why I'm just saying I just don't see any way Miles Morales' game could be in 2020. These bios are all incorrect then. That's the bottom line. We have to either trust all the bios or we trust one quick gravestone. All right, so let's break down then the missions inside the Spider-Man 2 game, as well as any other little historical events they give us. So they do tell us that Harry is put into the tank for treatment 2 years ago. Okay, so that's helpful. We know that Kirk Connors encounters the symbiote a few years ago. And of course, he loses an arm, so that does not go well. And we know that Kraven begins his hunt 6 months ago. So those are some nice things that place, historically some of the things before the game. Now let's look at the game itself. So nothing that I could see indicates what days, physical days in October, anything happens. So we're just going to go with October 1st since no days were crossed off the calendar yet, which let's assume Peter loves to do that because he did that in previous games. So therefore, we're going to go with October 1st for the opening scene. Then we know that after Roll Like We Used To, we move to the next morning. So that would be October 2nd. We know that there is then the morning after the Science Buddy mission, which moves us to October 3rd. We then have the Emily May Foundation being destroyed, and the next morning leads to October 4th. We have Peter then the morning after Wake Up, which moves us to October 5th. Then we go to the morning after Don't Be Scared, which is on October 6th. And finally, the morning after the final boss fight would move us to October 7th. So it does seem like this really goes day by day very quickly. So if you look at a day-by-day breakdown of the missions, again, you may or may not agree that it should be October 1st, but it just seems like it because nothing was crossed off the calendar. So then, boom, we would go straight forward from October 1st to October 7th. So there you go. That is theoretically the breakdown of the missions day by day. So I'm therefore going to say it's no longer October to November, which was just a guess earlier. We're going to move it to October. It's firmly in October 2020. Let me know what you think about that placement. Love to get your feedback. Then let's talk about Across the Spider-Verse, because we had guessed in the previous video that this Spider-Man 2 game was before Across the Spider-Verse, and that we might get some hints that, Peter was going to be enlisted into Miles' Spider Society. And boy, did we ever get some hints. It wasn't just hints. It was like, officially, yes, this is what happened. Because we see him meeting with Delilah, and Delilah says, oh, look, a spider hero. We're all saved. And then we get the name drops of Miguel, which is awesome. And of course, Peter going, wait, Miguel? Who's Miguel? Dude, you're going to find out soon. Trust me. So it's not clear how much time there is between the Spider-Man 2 game and this scene. At least I wasn't able to tell, and Corbino wasn't able to tell as well. But we do know that eventually he will show up in Across the Spider-Verse, obviously. So for now, I'm just going to put post-October 2020. We just really don't have any sense of how much time there is. Let me know what you think. Is there anything that indicates how much of a gap there is between the main part of the game and him meeting with Delilah? Also, let's take a moment to look at maybe the future of this timeline, because they gave us a lot of interesting ideas in the Spider-Man 2 game of where things are going. Well, first of all, we know Wolverine is coming. That's going to be epic. Cannot wait for that. And we're certain it's part of the same gaming universe because, well, Insomniac says so. So there you go. So that's going to be interesting to see if there's any crossovers or, hints and clues of where this fits in the overall gaming universe, but going to be an awesome game. But then if we look at the Spider-Man 2 game itself, we got hints that Cletus Cassidy is going to be showing up as Carnage in the Flame mission. Obviously, that's what we're headed for. So that's going to be epic to see Carnage. Hope we get a really, really good Carnage. Not that Venom Let There Be Carnage was a disappointment. I mean, it was okay. It just wasn't everything I wanted to see from Carnage. So I'm betting this is going to be spectacular. Then we also saw the Chameleon basically threatening to do what Kraven failed to do, which is kill Spider-Man. So we're probably going to see him in the third game. We got some questions about what are Norman's plans for the G-Serum. Is he going to use it to help Harry? Or is he going to take it himself to try to get revenge on Spider-Man? That'll be interesting to see. We see Norman talking to Octavius, and Octavius kind of has a little hint that Spider-Man 3 might be, quote-unquote, the final chapter, and that Octavius is going to be definitely a big part of that chapter. And then we also get an introduction to Cindy Moon, who very likely will become Silk. So that would be very cool. Lots to consider, lots to think about for the Spider-Man 3 game. Are there other things you want to see happening in the game or that you think will be happening in the game? These are just some of the ideas that we came up with, but let me know what you'd love to see happen, who you'd like to see him fight, etc. So until then, peace out, right? Love the Spider-Man games, so fantastic. That's the timeline. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any updates. I'll be happy to make them. And don't forget, we do have the November contest. Be a subscriber, leave a comment, and you might win a book or a timeline book, or a steel book, rather. Sorry. And also, we have the new membership option if you're interested. And lastly, we do have a Discord. I will leave a pinned comment so you can join it, because we're talking about the Marvel games, the Marvel comics, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, etc., Star Wars, DC, you name it. Love to have you join us. Almost 1,000 members. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we can all anxiously await the next game in the Spider-Man universe.